Hello and welcome to another episode on the Stretch Street podcast. This is the energetic EJ, and honestly, this particular episode, I am currently going through a stretch. Like, and honestly, you know, I love to like tell you things, right? The truth is, I am really concerned at this point because what is going on? What is going on? Just before we started to record this particular episode, my borrowed laptop just stopped working again. This is like the third time in 3 weeks. What is going on? But guess what, guys? Yes, that is what the stretch street is about. Like, for me, this whole experience this season, other than Neat needing me to go behind the scenes and like really question what is going on, is I feel like life is really trying to ask me, like, are you really sure? Like, are you really sure you really want to do this? And guess what? Just after a couple of weeks of celebrating 150th episode, as if it's like, okay, you did 150, we're gonna come at you now. You're not going to go further. I'm like, nope, 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 this is not happening. And as we start this particular episode, I just want to say thank you to my guest, Trang, who is the one actually helping to record this now. What are the odds? Can you imagine that? Isn't it also beautiful that on a day like this, I am having to record with a fellow podcaster. So she has all the things set up and it's like, you know what? Let me do the recording and I will send you the files afterwards. I'm like, yes. So we're doing it. So when I talk about, you going through your stretch season and the life lessons you've learned from it, it's not because I don't have my own stretch stories, Even just being, the host of the show alone is stretchy on itself on days where, tech is just going to go all like develop a mind of its own and just behave the way they want to behave. And honestly speaking, at first I was honestly totally down. Like, you know what? Maybe this is not supposed to happen. But again, another thanks goes to my guest who was like, you know what? I could give you a couple of minutes, to see if we still want to do this or not. And, just after taking some deep breaths and, saying no, I don't back down when there is challenges. And, part of my affirmation on a daily basis is that no matter what difficult situation comes every day, I am ready to face it and I have the capacity to solve problems. Okay, so this is me just telling you that even on your journey, so if you're watching this and you're a podcaster like ourselves, there will be days like this, all right? And these kind of days are there to test if you truly are in this for the right reasons. Otherwise, you're like, you know what? I'm done. I can't do this, right? But we are not like that anyways. Let me speak for myself. I am not like that because I am determined. I know that beyond just being here in your face week in, week out, this is an assignment for me. I know that there's somebody who needs to watch this, who needs to hear this particular story I just shared and go, oh wow, okay. So even when things are not working in my direction, I can actually change my attitude and still get the work done. I hope this intro, which is not the regular intro, I hope it has inspired you to sit with us today because today on the show, I have a guest all the way from, I think it's Australia, right? Even though you're traveling right now.
Yeah, correct. I am from Australia, but I am currently living in Bali. Yeah. I'm in Bali at the moment, but I'm an Australian in Bali. Yes.
Okay. Oh, fantastic, right? So, yes, absolutely. My guest today is Strang. And so your last name you have to pronounce for me when I start to ask you questions. Okay,
Yes.
it sounds African in a way. It sounds Nguyen. Nguyen, if I'm going to pronounce it like an African name, but
Ooh.
you will tell me how to pronounce it. Anyways, guys. Yes, so today on the show I have my guest from who is Australian but currently in Bali. Bali is a beautiful place. I haven't been, but I've heard a lot about the place. Hopefully, someday I'm going to visit and see the beauty by myself. Anyway, so today, Trang is going to be sharing with us her stretch story as it relates to imposter syndrome. And if you've been with me for a while, you would know that, I've talked about this a bit. At some point, I even had a whole session with my son who actually, took us through a whole session about imposter syndrome. And I learned a lot from that session. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to go check it out, my personal YouTube channel. And so I am, eager and excited to hear Chang's story as it relates to imposter syndrome, how she dealt with it, and some of the vital life lessons that she has learned from her journey so far. All right, so don't go anywhere. Sit back, relax as we get into the story. But before we do that, if this is your first time watching this on YouTube, please click on the subscribe button right now. Turn on notification so that you are notified every time I drop a new episode. And if you're listening to this on any of your listening platforms, please also you can favorite us there. You can send us messages on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. You can answer the question that is on Spotify. You can interact with us, and have your responses, pinned to that particular episode. And if you're listening anywhere else, favorite us there. Share with somebody who needs to hear this particular episode. Before we go into the story, let me go and introduce Trang the Stretch Street Way. Hi, Trang. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for being patient and for just being that support system for this particular episode. How are you today?
I am very well, EJ. Thank you for having me. And you know what? It's a pleasure for us to work together as a team and to make this episode happen. Because, like you said, we could have completely stopped and decided to do it another day. But we're like, no, this is the Stretch Street podcast. We do not back down. When we are stretched, we lean into it. So you're on your phone right now. I don't think you can use your microphone as you usually would. And we're using a completely different recording software, but we made it work. We're here.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's start with you pronouncing your last name for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So my full name is Trang Nguyen. That's how I pronounce it, although it's a Vietnamese surname. So there's no right or wrong way to translate it into the English pronunciation. But yeah, my parents are immigrants from Vietnam. I was born in Australia, so I am Australian, and I'm living in Bali at the moment. So that is a little bit of my background, bit of context.
Fantastic, love it. So if I was to ask you, what do you do? And if you had to tell me in one sentence, what would it be?
Oh, one sentence. Okay, I would describe myself as a mentor and a speaker for those who want to pivot in their careers and build their dream businesses so that they can step into their purpose and their potential. That's what I do.
Hmm. Love it. Love it. Okay. I guess we're going to find out a little bit about how you got here from your stretch story. Now, can you please tell us what is your philosophy about life?
I would say that my philosophy is that I believe we have one life. Or at least this is the one life that we get to have, even if we have other lifetimes, if that's what you believe. So, with this one life, why wouldn't we do whatever we can in our power to create our dream life and to step into our fullest potential and then leave the world a better place from how we were born onto it? That's my philosophy. That's how I live life. It's like, we've got this one life. Why not?
I love it. You know why? Because I think it was just yesterday or even this morning, it could be a combination of both. But this is exactly what I was thinking. Like, I think, I was just thinking to myself, like, I think this is becoming more clear as my philosophy of life. Like, this is just one life to live. And for me, it was more around live as if today is your last, and just make the impact you want to make. Do the things that comes to your mind that you want to do. Help that person, say sorry, forgive easily, like today is your last. So I love it. I love your philosophy. Tell us one fun thing about you.
Fun thing about me. I love to scuba dive. So the first time I went scuba diving, where you've got your oxygen tank, you go underwater, you go into the ocean, and you just feel like you're entering into a whole different world. Like you're seeing things that 99% of people will never see. And yeah, I just, it's like, you're at the surface of the water, it's wavy, it's choppy, it's windy. And then as soon as you drop below the surface of the water, it's just peaceful. There are fish and there are turtles, and yeah, it's quiet, and in this whole different world, it feels like. So that's one thing about me. I love to scuba dive.
That's right. That's nice. I haven't experienced that before, but just the thought of it, I can imagine, the peace that exists down there. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Now let us dive into the conversation today. You said, you've been through, I love how you said it. So you're going to retell that story. I love how you said, you had to go through your quarter life crisis. And I'm like, what is I've heard about midlife. So please, Trang, what is your stretch story? How did it, bring to surface what imposter syndrome is for you? How were you able to navigate? And then we'll get into the lessons that you learned from it.
Absolutely. So to give a little bit of a background about, you know, where I was when I was growing up, as I mentioned, my parents are immigrants from Vietnam. So when I was growing up, they raised me in a way where they could set me up for a life of abundance and security that they didn't have when they were leaving a war-torn country. So the narrative growing up was that I needed to work hard, I needed to study hard so that I could have a stable profession, and then I could enjoy the reward of a good life. So I worked hard in school, I finished university, and I graduated with a master's of physiotherapy. So I was working as a physiotherapist as well as a running and strength coach. So I was in the world of sport, the world of health and sport. And I was generally happy. I was generally comfortable and doing well until one particular morning when I was 24 years old. This particular morning, I'd gone out for a run, and when I stepped out onto the footpath, I heard a crunch. And I'm like, what's that? What's going on? I looked down, and it turns out I'd stepped on a snail. Now, this isn't the first time that I'd stepped on a snail before, and I'm sure that many of you have accidentally done the same. But for some reason, that morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I I felt really guilty that me just going for a run on this day at this time, living my own life, I'd caused such an effect on something outside of me. Like in this case, I had killed something. And this really got me thinking over the remainder of that run for the months that followed. I started to realize how much of an impact I have, like how much of a footprint I have as an individual, right? Like the decisions that I make have a flow on effect on things outside of me. And I started to really see the bigger picture of how my life, my lifestyle, my existence has an incredible impact on the world around me. And it was like a veil had been taken out from in front of my eyes, because I'd always known that. Like we all know that, if we use plastic, or if we get taught in school that if we don't turn off the lights, then we use a lot of electricity, and that might contribute to climate change. So we know this, but it really hit me after stepping on the snail, which by the way, just shows like how it's the most insignificant events that have the power to get us thinking and to teach us lessons in our life. Seriously, like I stepped on a snail, right? But this got me thinking, and this started what I call a quarter life crisis, because up until this point, I thought I was going to be a physiotherapist for the rest of my life. Yet here I was at 24 years old, and I was questioning, is this all I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Like, I feel like I have so much power as an individual. I need to become more. I need to do more. Like, what can I do with my lifetime that can contribute to as much change and as much progress for the world as possible? And I just felt this huge pull that I needed to do more. I needed to do something different. But at the same time, I had all these fears. I was like, physiotherapy is what I've gone to university for. It's what I'm known as. It's what I'm good at. Like, what are people going to think of me if I change? What if it fails? What if it doesn't work out? Like, what if I regret making a change? And I was torn in two different directions. And that's why I call it a quarter life crisis, because, I'd gotten to the point in my life where I could finally like integrate everything that I'd been taught in my upbringing and now bring it into who I was becoming and what my new learnings and what my new view of the world was. So I was integrating that, and it was a very confusing time.
I can truly imagine. And it's like you said, it's interesting to note that just a tiny event can actually just cause that spiral of thoughts, of questioning, of like, okay, what's going on and all of that. So how would you then tie that story? So I am assuming like, from all the different questions and the fears and all of it, is how you came to, or you came about to know that, okay, actually, what I'm feeling here is imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not good enough, I can't make the change. Who am I to decide I want to change the whole trajectory of my life when this is what I've gone to school to study, this is what I'm already known for, this is what I'm good at, so how were you able to navigate that mind shift to then say, you know what, I think I can do this. I can give it a shot. I can actually, rearrange or, refocus my life to another area that I feel I'm being called to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. What you just described. How I navigated that was I started to create space in my life to do more reflection. And one of the big realizations I had during a big reflection was that at the end of my life, when I am 80 years old in my recliner chair and looking back over my lifetime of who I became and what I achieved and what impact I had, like nothing is going to matter more at that time than me stepping into my highest, truest, most courageous self to live the life that I want to with this one lifetime, right? What we were talking about before. So I actually did an exercise. I went to a retreat with my life and business coach, and I did an exercise called the deathbed visualization, where we go into this meditative state and we visualize the end of our life. And there are two scenarios. One scenario is looking back over our life where nothing changes. So from now towards the end of our life, we don't make any major decisions, nothing major changes. We stay on the same trajectory for the rest of our life. So that's the first scenario. And we look at that and we say, how do we feel? Like what do we think about that, versus if we were to live our best, highest, most full life of purpose and potential? How would that look? How would that feel? So when I did that and I came out of that visualization, I realized in that moment that nothing else mattered. Like the fears, right? My fears that I wasn't good enough, that I was a fraud, that I was going to fail, that other people were going to judge me, that like my success, I wasn't worthy of my success. None of that mattered anymore, because all of that is just like thoughts and emotions passing through my body. That's what I realized. Like they're just temporary thoughts and temporary feelings. They don't define who I am or where I can go in my potential for decades to come, for the rest of my life. That doesn't define me. It's just temporary, momentary thoughts. So after that realization, I put my foot down and I'm like, I am done sitting on the fence. I'm done thinking about what I want to do, but not doing anything about it. And then after that was, it happened really quick. 1 month later, I started a new business. And then I started, doing what I'm doing now, helping others realize their purpose and their potential as well. But I think ultimately, how I overcame and squashed that imposter syndrome is what I call starting at the end. So, looking at, okay, when I'm 80 years old in my recliner chair, what's going to be the most important thing to me then? Is it that I'm scared that someone on my Facebook who was a high school friend, they're going to see that I'm doing something and they're going to judge me? No, like that's not going to matter at all. None of that matters. But what really matters?
Hmm. Hmm. I love it. I love it. I think it's a term, a friend of mine, when we talk about these things, it's a term he calls future pacing, So when, we start to, when we do that for both of, vice versa. So when I start to like fidget, I'm like, man, I'm feeling someone, and it's like, okay, 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 calm down, EJ. Let's future pace. Okay. Let's go to the future. Let's take a trip down. Most people take trips down memory lane. No, we take trips down future lane. And we go there and just look from there and see what's possible, and just know that honestly, like right now, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from creating that possibility. It's just like you said, the feeling of fear, the feeling of self doubt is just a passing feeling. It's not temporal, it's not permanent, it's not eternal. We are eternal. Our like the choices we make consciously are eternal. But all of those other suggestions, they are just suggestions. That is what they are. And we can acknowledge them and say, okay, okay, you think I'm not good enough. Anyways, that's fair enough. But actually, I think I am, and I'm gonna do what I have to do, right, to get to this future of possibility that I've envisioned, and it's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, if you're going to distill some of the life lessons that you have learned through this journey, what are some of them that you can share with us? One, two, three, just share with us some like life lessons that this whole quarter life crisis as tendered into your hands.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, so many life lessons to come from this. I really look back at that period of my life and I say it's one of the best things that have happened to me because it was painful at the time. I was confused. I felt lost. I was just like, I wish it were easy. I wish I could have all the answers that I wanted. I just wish it could just happen. But I look back now and I'm like, I'm so glad that this happened. And I think the first lesson is actually the fact, going off what we were just talking about, is that all of these thoughts, self doubt, fear, it's simply an illusion. Like, it's not just a passing thought, it's actually an illusion. It's not even real. Like, okay, the feeling of doubt, so, the butterflies in our stomach, like the clammy hands, that is valid. Okay. Of course, that physiological reaction is real. But the thought that we aren't good enough, that we are a fraud, that we're not worthy of success, that's an illusion. Why? Because I looked into this. Us humans, we have a psychological bias. It's called the negativity bias, where our brains are literally wired to focus on and to actually utilize negative feedback over positive feedback. So, for example, like think about this, right? If we are at work and we've just done a presentation, we ask our colleague after we finish our presentation, how did I go? What did you think? And they say, you did so well. I love how you did this. I love how you did that. Like this part of your talk, fantastic. And then they say the dreaded words, but. And then after they say but, they say one thing. They say one thing that we could have done better. They're just like, oh, but maybe this part, you could have done this part a little bit better, right? And suddenly we now have the memory of a goldfish, 3-second memory, because we've forgotten everything that they said that you know what I mean? Like we forget everything that they say that we did well, and we just remember the one thing we could have done better. And now we suddenly feel crap. We're like, oh my gosh, was my presentation bad? Like, what are people judging me for my presentation? It should have been better. But that is the psychological bias. Like our brains latch onto negative feedback and focus on that and then bypass the positive feedback. So we could have a lifetime of success and then have one failure, one setback, and then utilize that to define our worth. And suddenly we think that we are a failure, we're not good enough, we're not worthy. Um, and then that's how we see ourselves. But it's completely biased and it's completely an illusion. And I really had to learn that through this experience, because I thought that I would never make it. Like, no one in my entire family lineage is in business. I knew nothing about business. So I thought that I'd never be good enough to do business. Yet, within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I've been able to build it up to, yeah, you could say, live the dream life. So we have to give ourselves a chance. We have to give ourselves a chance to show ourselves what we are capable of and to expand our limits. Yeah. That was the first learning, a huge one.
Very huge. Very
Yeah.
huge. Yes, please. Is
Yes.
there more? Is there more?
Oh, yeah. So many
Let's be the
more.
Oliver twist. Please share more.
Yes. Okay. More.
Yeah, just share with us two or three and then we'll wrap this up.
All of the learnings. Um, the second one is that it is never too late to change and to follow our truth. And I know that you've probably heard this before, right? It may seem cliche, but
Yeah.
it's never too late. When I was 24 years old, I thought I was too old to change paths. I thought it wasn't even, I know, right? I know, it's so funny. Like, seriously, when I was 24 years old, when I was going through this quarter life crisis, one of the thought processes in my head was, well, I've gone to uni for 4 years. I've worked for another 4 years as a physiotherapist. Like, what's the point of changing now? It's like too late. Is it even worth it to change? And I look back now, that was only 4 years ago. So I'm 28 years old now. I look back and I'm like, what were you thinking, you
Look
little
at all you
baby?
would have
Like,
missed.
exactly. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, you think you were too old? So I thought that when I was 24 years old. But here's the thing. I actually recently spoke to someone who's 76 years old, and she published her first book when she was 72 years old. And at 76, she's just published her second book.
Hmm.
And she's had multiple careers in her lifetime as well. And we're
Wow.
talking about how we always feel like it's too late. We always feel like we're going to waste the energy and the effort from our lifetime if we were to change
Change,
paths.
absolutely.
But
Hmm.
here's the thing, what's more of a waste? Yeah, like, what's more of a waste? The 4 years that you went to uni, wasting that, or wasting the next 40 years of your life living a micro version of yourself?
Ooh, the thought of
What's
it
more
is
of a
giving
waste?
shivers. Oh my God, no.
Ah, right?
No.
But like, we
Wow.
think like that because it's like the
Hmm.
sunken cost fallacy of, okay, I've spent 4 years at uni, I've spent 10 years in this relationship, I've spent 10 years working in this corporation to become a manager, to become a leader, to become the CEO. I've spent so much time on
And now
this
you want me
path.
to
It
go and
feels like it's going
start
to be a
like
waste.
from entry level again. In another industry.
Right?
Wow.
Right? But then once again, what's more of a waste? The last 4 years, the last 10 years, or the next 40 years,
Or
the
the
next
next
50
50.
years? Because I
So
don't know
good.
about
So
you.
good. So good.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but what matters most isn't what's already happened, but what is yet to come. And that is the only thing that matters. That is the only thing that
Yes.
we could potentially waste and lose. So let's not waste an extra day, an extra moment. Hey.
So good. So, 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 so good.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Like at this point, I feel like you have a bag, like a truckload of these lessons that you can just wait. Do you want more? Do you want more? I can just dig a deep and bring another one.
I'm
But I
telling
can
you.
say for sure that these two that you have shared are so powerful that if anyone listening to this or watching this right now would just run with those two, they would actually make a significant change in their lives in the next, like you said, it's just this negativity bias you talked about is very powerful, because it is the reason why you'd say, oh, the year is already halfway gone. What's the point writing a new goal? Meanwhile, if you actually sit and reflect, you would notice that the goal you set at the beginning of the year was actually the wrong goal, because you didn't set it fully recognizing, fully accepting who you are and where you are at. So probably it's not even realistic. So there is nothing wrong halfway into the year realizing that and saying, okay, you know what? I think I set the wrong goal in the first place. So now I'm going to really face the reality and I'm going to set a fresh goal and I'm going to go for it for the rest of the month, for the rest of the year, right? Rather than say, oh, man, and just complain and complain and complain. And before you know it, this is 31st of December 2023, and you're joining the rest of the world on the 1st of January 2024. They say, Happy New Year. Is it really happy? Like, there's that illusion of wanting to start afresh just at the beginning of the year, when your own new year can literally start right now. You can decide, like, okay, you know what? I'm starting 2023 today, and then make that massive change or even that tiny change, but in the right direction. Honestly, I am so grateful that you also did not like say, oh, okay, you know what, let's do this another time. But you like, you know what, can we try this? And this actually speaks to what you currently do as a coach, as a mentor, to help people just dive in. And I want to say thank you, Trang, for playing a role in allowing this particular session holds today. One of the things that also keeps me going, especially when things like this happen, is that I just feel like when there are like distractions of this sort, it means that there is something in this particular episode that somebody really needs to hear that is going to change their lives. And there's just this resistance like, nope, this message should not come out. No, it shouldn't come out. No, 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 somebody is about to be liberated. You can't do that. And I'm like, no, 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 we are going to do this because this person, this one person that needs to watch this episode, that needs to listen to this episode, has to get it so that they can start and make the change that they want in their lives. So one more time, I really cannot thank you enough, but thank you for playing a role to ensuring that this episode goes on, that we do this now. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. What will be your last words for my listeners today?
Hmm. Final words. All right, I'll say this. Once again, we have one life. So let's live a life of purpose. I believe that the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. And if you don't do it for yourself, then do it for others, do it for the world, do it for leaving a positive ripple of impact in your path. And that helps with imposter syndrome as well. Like sometimes we are scared of what other people would think of us, right? But if we do it for the greater good, if we leave so much impact and so much positivity, then who cares what other people think of us? It's going to be so valuable, so powerful how we show up in the world. So go out there. The purpose of life is to live a life of purpose.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. You heard it from Trang. The purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. And if you've heard me say it every time, I love to help purpose driven individuals use their voices for impact, influence, and income. So, so, so stop sitting down, stop second guessing yourself, stop allowing all those negative voices. Take charge. You wake up and take charge of your thoughts, of your mind, of your decisions, of your choices, of your actions, and of your outcome. Thank you for being a part of the podcast today. This is the Energetic EJ. This is the Stretch Street Podcast. Remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Remember to favorite us on your listening or your preferred listening platform. And if you have any question, suggestion, you want to talk to me about, please send me an email to stretchstreetpod@gmail.com. Till I come your way again next week with another stretch story. Remember, challenges are not exclusive to any of us. We all go through them. But one thing you should ask yourself every time there is a challenge is to say, what is this here to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this experience? And when you take that posture, you'll be able to distill the things that you need to learn. You become a better person and you increase your value quotient. Until I come your way again next week, remain amazing. Bye bye.